Good morning. It's August 2nd, 2022. I thought I'd do another garden walk. It's been a couple of weeks, so I'm gonna just quickly walk through and highlight a few things. Well, probably won't be that quickly, but if you've watched my videos before, you know that. But trying to focus on what's interesting at this time of the year. Every few weeks it's different stuff. This peach tree here, which was an apricot tree that the graft died on, and it was grafted on a peach rootstock. This is bearing fruit for the first time this year, and these peaches are not nearly ripe yet. They're not that large, and they're not soft at all, not coloring up. But that's something to look forward to. Hopefully get to try a few of those. I think there's some that are out of the deer's reach. So looking forward to that this year. Not a lot of interesting stuff happening in this front part of the garden here, so I'm not going to linger here. I do have one or two little fruits on this rootstock of a Japanese plum. It was a Japanese flowering plum called Kankobai, and there is a little fruit. There's a couple of these on this, and this is the rootstock, unknown rootstock, so we'll see what that amounts to, if anything. I think there are two fruits on that. I've got a flowering rose of Sharon there in the hedgerow, looking nice right now. This Aromat Naya quince has a few, 3 or 4 fruits on it this year. They're kind of fuzzy at this stage, which is interesting because the photos of the fruit, the ripe fruit, they're not fuzzy. So we'll see, maybe it'll lose that quality. It's cloudy. Hopefully it will stay cloudy because it looks nicer on camera than harsh sunlight, and it's kind of wet. It's about 7:30 in the morning. This area looks pretty good still. This is the reseeded wildflower mix area with woody perennials mixed in. Got a little cultivar serviceberry there. Got a hawthorn there. Got cup plant is the tall thing there flowering. That's looks good this week. As we pan over here, what do we got? There's a little pawpaw here. Monarda is still kind of flowering, the purple flowers. Wild senna is still flowering pretty nicely. Got another pawpaw back there. Some cup plants have not flowered yet, and they vary. Some of them, this one here is only about 4 or 5 feet tall and not flowering yet. But as we go back this way, this tall one is probably 8 feet tall, and that was a good mature one that I transplanted in. Show one of my other little favorite plants over here. I used to have a couple nice selections of this around the garden, but they've faded out or died for some reason. Maybe they got lost in the power line construction. But this is Anise Hyssop, which has a delicious sweet flavor. The whole plant has an amazing black licorice flavor and nice scent, beautiful flowers. I used to have some nice specimens of that. I think this might be bottle brush grass. It looks like or it could be a different grass that kind of resembles that, so apologies if I'm wrong there. But yeah, this year, this area looks wonderful. I don't know how long it'll continue to look this nice with these flowers. As the woody perennials grow up, the flowers will get shaded out somewhat. This gumi looks sad. I've had several gumis that get these yellow leaves, and I don't know what it is. Other plants around look totally fine, so some peculiarity maybe of one selection of gumi or the species in general. But as I was saying, this area may not look as good in years to come. I feel like in 5 years it could be a lot less wildflowers and more stupid grasses and things that I don't really want, and plus more shade. So as this peach tree grows up, in 5 years that could be 10 or 12 feet tall and taking up a lot more space here. Well, I'll pan over here. I've got one nice plant that's just kind of starting to flower. This is Pale Indian Plantain here in the center. It's got these not real showy, but interesting flowers and kind of beautiful and interesting leaf formation. I don't know that these are related to the weedy plantains that are in your yard. They don't seem like they would be, but I have to read up on that again. But anyway, that's a really neat kind of architectural native plant. I think I planted 6 or 8 of them one year, and I think that's the only one that I know of that's still alive. So looking this way, no longer getting hounded by the bird that had the nest in this pear tree, this tall skinny pear tree. That was an orchard oriole, and I don't know if the fledglings left the nest or what. Hopefully my aunt's cats didn't kill them, but that's always a possibility when you've got cats around. But you probably can't see, there's a nest right there, but there's no activity in the nest. So hopefully the mother didn't die and the babies didn't die, but hard to say. Linden tree here. I just have been watching some videos online about making a chocolate substitute out of the fruits of the linden tree. These little round deals. I think they maybe need to size up a bit more, but that's really interesting and promising. Wait, are these falling off in my hand? Okay, maybe I need to harvest them now. Maybe this is as large as they get. But who wouldn't want a cold climate chocolate substitute? So as I pan this way, you can see these 3 mature apple trees here have loads of fruit this year, way too much fruit. And I'm kind of actually worried that it's not going to amount to anything because it's been a pretty dry summer. We have had a couple of good rainfalls here or there, but overall it's been some pretty dry stretches. So those things are hurting. You can kind of see over there the ferns are all burned up. A lot of the understory plants died because it was too dry this summer. This tall, weirdly vertical chestnut tree here had a few flowers, and I see a couple burrs on it this year, but I doubt that they are filled because there aren't any other flowering chestnuts very close by here. So I'm guessing that those are not nuts that are filled. This area here, I've got this statuesque kind of bonsai looking old peach tree that's on its last legs. And amazingly, the deer have not come and eaten these peaches off yet. I probably should harvest these today. I mean, they're quite colored. They're not very soft yet. Yeah, they're not very soft, but they have a nice color to them. This variety is called Flamin' Fury, and I planted this the first year of the garden, 2010, and it's never had much of a crop. I think two different years besides this year it had some peaches on it. The one year that I had the best crop, the deer ate every single peach off the tree the night before I was going to pick them. Of course, that's like total classic deer wildlife story with fruit. But this part of the garden looks nice right now. The lavender colored Monarda is kind of finishing off. We've got the kind of alien looking flowers of tansy that are just kind of coming on here. Not very showy flowers, but tansy is kind of spread into this area. I used to have some fennel in this area, but that's totally gone. It's interesting what plants come and go over the years. The yellow flowers there, that's rosinweed. Rosinweed is a nice, tough, perennial plant, prairie plant. I planted lots of those around the property. Down here, this kind of more golden yellow flowers are Heliopsis or false sunflower. Used to have more of these too, but they haven't done all that well. And this stuff here, this greenery, this is going to be the flowers of New England aster. So that'll be a big show in a month or so as we get in toward fall. It's one of the later blooming flowers. Another little leaf linden tree that never hasn't really flowered or fruited ever. Not sure why. This apple tree is one that I planted, and it's got some issues. This was a John and Go red apple, and it's, for one issue, it's leaning at a weird angle. And I used to have it staked. It's at almost a 45-degree angle. I had it staked at one time, but that didn't seem to do the job. And I grafted 5 or 6 different varieties onto the various branches of this tree, and of course the tags are all lost. But I don't know if some of these fruits are from grafts that I did. I'll have to revisit my archives. But it's got maybe a dozen fruit on it this year. Tree doesn't look great. It's got bark problems. It's got southwest injury. It's got a dead branch there. So I want to show on the ground here, I've got some fertilizer. I don't have any like big piles of it, but you can sort of see the deer I threw a bunch of apples out in this area when I was thinning these apple trees off. And I had noticed that the deer, they would come and eat the apples off the tree or off the ground, and they would leave fertilizer, and of course happy for that. But yeah, the apple crop is just silly on these trees. I'm afraid they're going to break their branches off actually, but we'll see. Yeah, the understory looks pretty burned up over here. And panning this way, we've got my nursery area here. Things are growing pretty well, although deer have been visiting this part of the garden too and browsing some plants that I'm growing. But things look okay if you don't mind the mess. There's a persimmon tree there, accident, that grew through a pot, same as this tall one here. An accidental persimmon, didn't mean to plant it. A couple of dumb forsythia bushes and an ornamental crabapple from the Arbor Day Foundation that I didn't really want to have, but they sat in pots for too long and they grew into the ground there. So here's a bed of chestnuts, grapes, persimmons, hazelnuts, Nanking cherries are the tall thing. This stuff looks pretty good. A few of the chestnuts are getting chlorotic looking, and I've applied a acid-loving fertilizer a couple times. I don't know if it's iron or pH, but this has happened almost every year with chestnuts. Now these younger ones look fine, but the ones that were sprouted sooner start looking bad. These persimmons look fine. I don't know, they've got a little bit of a leaf curl issue. I saw some pest, looks like an aphid type thing. There's like a little waxy, I don't know, thing that's rolling these leaves. But overall, they don't look bad. There's a couple hickories in here and some other stuff. But in this bed, these grapes are growing excellent. They're doing, shit, they've grown four feet of vine on some of them. But I've got hundreds of American persimmons here, and these all look really yellow. And so again, I've tried some acidifying fertilizer. I usually don't do much with fertilizer with these things for the year that I grow them, but it seems like these need something. So I might also try to add some iron to see if that could be the problem. The hazelnuts look fine in the same soil, and the grapes look fine, so I don't know what's going on with these particular persimmons. Anyway, here is the remnants of my original clove currant bush that Trevor gave me, and you can see, well, there's not many fruits left on it. There were a few fruits here and there, and some garden visitors have eaten them over the last week. I have given 4 tours of the garden in the last 2 weeks and had about 20 people come overall, which is great to see the garden when it looks halfway decent. These are willows, and it's interesting to see how in the dew, the water sticks to these willows, the willow leaves, in a way that it doesn't, or at least it doesn't show up on other things in the same way. So let's see if I can get back to a normal focus. So yeah, there's willows, there's 4 different kinds of elderberries. This is a catalpa that got in here somehow. The deer have been browsing this stuff. There's a few hickories hiding down here if they can ever get some sunlight and grow up. Nanking cherries here. Got some clove currants here. Clove currant. Yeah, some heavy browsing here. Willows and elderberries. So this stuff looks pretty good. I'm going to show you this area here. The Monarda Festival. This elderberry, this is Hochberg. Looks pretty. It's got these ornamental purple umbels, but the fruit set is not very heavy. I believe it's because there's no other pollinator nearby. But yeah, pretty attractive purple umbels. I've got lots of propagules of this. Took a lot of cuttings. It's my only good elderberry bush that I've got in the whole site after 12 years. The deer and drought have killed almost all of them off. But that one looks great, and it's got a woody structure that the deer and rabbits can't quite munch down easily. I got Chinese tune tree here, which I still have never harvested and tried the leaves of that, but it's a edible leaf crop. It tastes like garlic and onions apparently. Some willow, a bunch of honeyberries in here, and some other perennials. Another rose of Sharon here. Here's a red currant, perfection red currant from Russ. The deer ate the whole top of it off, unfortunately, but I think it'll survive. So yeah, these Monarda here, they're kind of winding down. They're flowering. A lot of them have powdery mildew, so starting not to look as great. You can see the leaves look kind of patchy and gross at this phase of their life cycle, but still a lot of bee and butterfly activity. They're all loving this stuff, so I'm happy to have it around. Young hazelnut that I planted, one of my good raspberries here. This is a flowering quince from Oikos. I don't remember if this is lemony quince or which one, but there are some fruits. Small, they're small, not sizing up really, but there are some fruits forming on this bush this year. So I've mown paths through this garden. I'm just going to kind of do a quick walk through. I do have some blackberries. Pardon the mess here. Some of this stuff is not mine. Blackberries there, and my native bee habitat is getting populated finally. I was kind of worried that nobody was going to come live there this summer, but they are. Just kind of late to the game. So check out the cedar apple rust on these service berries, wild service berries. I wonder if these will actually come back next year because they got such a heavy hit from this disease this year. All this yellow stuff is wild service berry. So they took a real spanking from that this year. I don't know. We'll see if they come back. Lots of little thicket of eastern red cedars, among other things. I do have a few blueberries over here. They're not real happy, and there's only been a few berries. You can see there's a few in here. Not a great year. They've never had any real luck with blueberries, very little. Had a handful here and there, but never any kind of a serious crop. This mystery plant, it might be a sunchoke. I had planted sunchokes over here, and last time I thought it couldn't be a sunchoke because it had a brown central disc thing there, but I don't know. I'm curious about that because I do have a few other sunchokes flowering in other places, which surprises me this early season. It's just the beginning of August. But speaking of things flowering early, I do have an early type of goldenrod over here that starts flowering in late July. I'll show you a couple pawpaws that look good. This pawpaw tree here is probably 10 feet tall, looking nice, and starting to have a couple of root suckers here and there. And then I've got one, you can't see it behind the catalpa over there, but there's one straight ahead that's also about a similar height and looking good. And I've got a pretty good one back there, and another pretty good one over there. And this one has been here for 10 years, and it's almost as tall as I am now. But yeah, this area is growing up quite a bit with cedars and autumn olive and wild pears, wild apples, sassafras, etc. You name it, poison ivy, all the classics. So yeah, this wildflower area is being overtaken pretty well by some type of sedge. It's just kind of spread into here, and it's getting pretty thick, so I don't know if I'm going to have to do something about that eventually. I want to show you this Culver's root. I'm pretty sure this is Culver's root, but it's a beauty right now. Very pretty. Hopefully it's focusing. There we go. Yeah, nice looking plant. Kind of bummed about the goldenrod, but whatever. I guess there are earlier species. I don't know if this is the Canada goldenrod because I have that other places and it's not flowering yet. So there's not much to really talk about here. I'm not going to spend too much time. I have a couple grafts over here that I did that are looking okay. These are bird planted junk pear trees, calorie pears or whatever. Shit, I really need to get some guards on these things. Here's one. This is all new growth and deer ate the top off of it. But you know, this is what the leaves look like before grafting. It's kind of reddish stems and these kind of rough, crinkly green leaves. This is a cultivar pear. This is Kiefer pear. And so there were three bird planted pears in a row here, and I grafted all three of them with the same. Damn, they ate all these leaves off. Son of a bitch. But there's a whipping tongue graft. Can't see very well. This graft is also whipping tongue. This one looks a little bit cleaner. Doesn't look too bad. But yeah, I need to get some protection on those. See if I can focus again. Okay, sorry. I want to show you this nice hazelnut over here. This is I love this thicket of growth here. Is really feels nice. I wish the whole property had this kind of rampancy, but it doesn't for a myriad of reasons. Most of them out of my control. This hazelnut here, it's got a really great crop. Heavy fruiting. It bends the branches down to the ground. And the nuts are good quality. I mean, this branch is heavy. I can hardly lift it up. It's serious. So this is definitely one worth propagating. But we've got wild apples, we've got wild pears, we've got sassafras, autumn olive, wild grape, wild cherry, the typical junk species. You know, you've got maples. You've got a little bit of everything in here. This apple or serviceberry maybe. Got nitrogen fixers, all kinds of stuff. This is my red-leafed crabapple seedling that Birch planted for me. It's probably got the typical crappy little small crabapple fruit that, you know, from the ornamental crabs. I'm gonna let it go for a few years and see what the fruit looks like. If it's any good, then, you know, maybe it's a larger fruit. If so, I might just keep it as it is. If it's not anything good, I can always graft onto it with something else. Over here, I do have a couple of the supposed American highbush cranberries here. That remains to be seen. But again, kind of a thicket. Got a few little oikos plums there. Older serviceberry tree here. And here's something interesting. This is an autumn olive, and the fruits are already coloring up, although they're very small. Hopefully this whole video is not out of focus. I've tasted a couple of these, and they're not great yet, but they're sort of edible. Okay, so continuing on, thicket of wild goose plum here. Show these nice little spider web type things. They look nice this time of morning with the dew. It's kind of like a little dish or saucer. Maybe I'll show you another graft I did over here. This is another wild pear that the birds planted for me. These Bradford pears or Kiefer pears or whatever people plant in their landscapes that are really pretty crappy trees. The birds eat the little fruits of them, and they spread them around, and so they're becoming a major species here suddenly. They weren't, you know, 5 or 10 years ago. So these, again, the kind of crinkly leaves, the reddish coloration to the stem. This is the rootstock. Now this is a wild, looks like it's got 2 trunks maybe almost. So I'm gonna have to do some serious pruning on this thing. But anyway, the graft I did is a pretty crappy looking graft, but it is healing over here. I think I left the tape on a little bit too long, so I kind of almost gurgled it. But I've got 2 buds that grew, and this thing's taller than I am now. It's probably put on 3 feet of growth in a couple months, so that's cool. There's a 9-bark bush behind that. So yeah, that's exciting. That'll be a nice new pear tree, and that is another Kiefer. Kiefer is a good storage pear. Is a good keeper. There's another graftable something or other. Here's a gooseberry that I planted 10 years ago. I don't see any, well, I guess there might have been a couple little fruits on there, but I missed them. So hopefully some wildlife enjoyed those. This looks like a wild apple maybe, another wild apple. Got lots of grafting potential here. This is a wild pear. So yeah, you can pick and choose your rootstock here. You can graft 20 of them and just pick the best one. This I think is a wild goose plum that I planted as a pollination partner for the other one that I've got. And I also planted a second, I think Dunbar's plum. That might be what this is, or maybe that's what that is there. Don't remember what this is here. This area has all changed a lot in recent years. A big tree got cut down. Here's another hazelnut that's got a heavy crop on it. Good load. It's bending the branches down. So we'll walk over this way. 25 minutes in, wow. Time flies. Gonna come over and see some chestnut trees mostly, and the stuff that's growing up around the chestnut trees. And there is a method to the madness here. It looks pretty chaotic, but there's a reason that everything's growing up the way it is. So here's a grafted pear tree that has never looked good, and I don't think it's ever had a fruit really, but half of it's broken off. I don't know if you'll be able to see this really, but it broke off, and actually that part's still alive. There must be a piece of tissue connecting it, and there's still some sprouts coming off, but just a sad looking tree overall. That's an Alberta peach. So here, this chestnut here, this beauty, is the Dick Winkle grafted chestnut that I got, 2017 I think it was, or 18. And I think this might be his cultivar Royal Mark, so we'll see if that's true. But looking good, it's got a few burrs on it. There's a chestnut tree that died, and looks like all that growth is maybe from this year or last year, I can't tell, 1 or 2 years regrowth here. And a lot of these are going to be too close to each other, but I'm going to kind of pick and choose the winners and losers over time, so there won't be chestnuts at 10-foot spacings necessarily, but in the early years it's good for pollination. This bush in the middle here is an alder. I don't remember which species of alder this is, maybe gray alder. I have to check my planting maps. I tried getting various alders here for years and failed for a number of reasons. It got ripped off on eBay a few times with Italian alder seeds, etc., etc. So that might be one of the reasons why I introduced black locust to the site here, which has been a great grower. Really happy with the way that's growing up, although it is a thorny plant, so you've got to be aware of that and wear gloves if you want to handle it, or just be really cautious. But anyway, I've done some mowing back here. There's another chestnut back there. This, I believe, is a seedling of sago chestnut from a seed that James Nave sent me. And there's a few other chestnuts back there. These tall trees in the overstory, these are black locust, and these are getting to the point where they're going to have to be cut down this winter, which is fine because there's 1,000 other sprouts coming up like this little guy here. They can grow up for a few years and then they can get cut down. But yeah, that's kind of the pattern here. There's chestnuts, sumacs, and black locust kind of making up most of this three-dimensionality that you see here, and also some wild indigo in places, which is a large shrub. So this chestnut might have been a seedling of Allison's, as this one here might have been. Originally I planted these at wider spacings, but then I realized I might as well fill in with some extra plants that I have, because what if some of them die? It's just good to have more than less. You can always pick and choose, cut some down later. Chestnut wood is a good wood. No harm in growing extra trees. This is the first chestnut tree that I planted on the site. This is the Hartman American hybrid chestnut or something, and it's never been anything impressive. I don't think I've ever had viable nuts off of it, although it does have some burrs this year. We'll see if any of these got filled. Even this little root sprout thing has one burr on it, which is funny. But yeah, this black locust, this can be cut down. This is, God, I don't know, 40 feet tall maybe. And dropping the tree is actually going to be a little bit of a logistical challenge. I can't let it get too much taller. I don't want to smash the other stuff that I'm trying to grow here. But let me come over this way. Here's a hazelnut growing far away from any other hazelnuts that I have. So animals planted that one for me. Here's a chestnut that's died a couple of times and regrown probably multiple times. And here we've got wild riverbank grape growing on top of autumn olive. And these never get very big. They won't get much bigger than that, but these do have edible leaves if you get them earlier in the season. Cup plant here, chestnut here. This one, it's got several trunks. A lot of my chestnuts are like that. That's okay. And mulberries. Actually, it's surprising to still have mulberries this late in the season. It seems oddly late, but there are still some on here, although I'd say that they do have bug problems, a lot of bug problems. And they're kind of dry and mealy. So not the choicest mulberries, but there are some to eat if you wanted some. This trail goes, it's going north. More thicket of mulberries here. Got a great stand of cut plants over here. This little patch of the garden has better soil than most. A little richer and heavier, so things grow better. So instead of being 4 feet tall, these are 8 feet tall. This is a beautiful old box elder here. This is kind of the totem tree of this whole property. Pretty statuesque in the wintertime. It really is a nice silhouette. Really craggly and keeps dropping major branches, but I love it. It's a really beautiful tree. So ages ago, this, well, not coming back this far, but a little farther toward where the house used to be, there was my great-grandparents' vegetable garden. And I wonder if this lily here is some kind of a remnant of ancient times. There's some other daylilies and things and irises as you go farther toward their house, where the house used to be. There's a little chestnut there. But yeah, this area will look different in a couple of years as these largest locust trees get taken down. That'll open up the light for these other chestnuts, which are, you know, probably wanting a little bit more light than they're getting. So that'll be nice, but it'll kind of change the feeling a bit, but I think in a good way. Let's see, making my way through the thicket here. But yeah, all this thick undergrowth, this is winged sumac, and there's some goldenrod and some other stuff, and it's kind of junky stuff, but I can use it. As you see, I use it as a chop and drop mulch for my other target trees. Like, so this chestnut, you know, it needs to have that black locust cut down, and probably also this one to give it enough sunlight, but it might flower next year. But in the meantime, I can selectively, as I'm mowing paths, I can chop that stuff down and throw it around the base of these trees as mulch. So here's a really weird looking wild crabapple. And I say weird because it's got a scraggly growth habit and doesn't have much foliage this year. But you can see that the typical apples that it bears are small. This is the size of them. And then I've grafted, I don't remember, I have to look at my notes if I can even find them. But I grafted some variety, supposedly disease-resistant variety, onto this. And so these are bearing for the first time this year. But overall, the tree doesn't look that great. All the branches are kind of bending down with the weight of the fruit. Here's another graft that I did at the same time, probably. And these are smaller apples. I don't know what variety that is, but they've got lots of bug issues. So that's kind of fun to see your grafts bear fruit for the first time. There's a chestnut coppice area. Excuse me. I'm going to turn around and face the north here. So there's that crabapple tree I just showed you, the branches all bending down. Tall tree there is a wild black cherry. That's a box elder, black locust there. And so these are all sacrificial trees that can be cut down as needed as time progresses. This is a chestnut here that's kind of arching out over this hole that I dug, which does not have any water in it at the moment. A couple sprouts of this apple tree, the apple I just showed you, these are probably root sprouts of it, and I grafted some stuff onto those a couple years ago. And this wildflower garden looks good right now, still looking pretty good. Got rosin weed. These are rosin weed, this stuff. These. Got black locust in there, I need to get rid of that. Monarda, still a little bit of Monarda. The tall Coreopsis is done. The prairie dock, this massive leafed thing over here, it's kind of just winding up. It's flowering. Let's see if we can see these flowers. So they're kind of typical Silphium flowers, not super showy, not super huge, but neat, really cool plant, super attractive. Those leaves are almost waist high and kind of comically large. And here we have compass plant, which the leaves tend to orient themselves north-south, and they are doing that as we see here. This one doesn't have flowers this year, I don't think. I think it's flowered some years and not others. More rosinweed, this stuff is spreading itself around. Got chestnut here. This is a tall clump of wild black cherry. This also probably will need to be cut down this winter because there's a chestnut over there that they're kind of shading out. There's a young chestnut here. This chestnut here could probably use a little more sunlight. This one here is doesn't need sunlight, but has been getting some mulch. Got mullein, this tall fuzzy thing here. It's nice. Cup plant, and the cup plant, yes, it's doing its thing. There's water in the leaf margins here. See if we can focus. Don't see any critters in there, but it is doing what it's supposed to do. Focus, come on, okay. Got this tall walnut here, which I didn't plant it, but it's getting to be a pretty big tree. It does have some nuts this year, so we're gonna evaluate those nuts and see if they're anything worth saving. I'm not super tied to the idea of keeping that tree, but we'll see. I've got another bird planted pear that I grafted over there. I'm not sure what that is over there, maybe a chestnut. This is a possible mulberry candidate for grafting. Got redbud, catalpa, and this is probably a seedling of that catalpa because I didn't plant this little one. Here's a chestnut that looks like it's died a couple of times. And back there is a hackberry that I transplanted back here. And my favorite big chestnut, timber chestnut from Oikos. Looking good, has some burrs on it this year. Also has some leaf problems, but I don't think that's gonna stop it. You can see some leaf issues here. The ironweed is just about to flower. I think I saw some open ones. Well, I'll just kind of keep an eye out, but there are a few that are, that's what this stuff is. And it's got really pretty purple flowers, and some of them are opening. I've got a couple of the so-called Seguin chestnuts here that are fruiting. They have burrs on them. This one here doesn't. And this has some leaf issues. I just read something about boron deficiency in chestnuts, so I wonder if I need to get some rock powder or something over here to supplement these things, because some of them do have leaf issues and some don't. And it could just be the genetics of the individual. But you can see there's some good burrs on that one and also on the fourth one. So the second and the fourth one here barely had any nuts, and then the first and third one do. Tulip poplars there, growing pretty well nowadays. Let's see, which way do I want to walk? Okay, we'll go back. This is the chinkapin chestnut, or one of the two chinkapin chestnuts that I have, and quite a heavy fruit set on these this year. There's thousands of these little burrs, looking good. These are so small that they're hardly worth fussing with for humans to eat, but excellent wildlife plant. And I'm going to pan back. So there's that chinkapin. There's a white birch I planted. If that starts shading stuff out, it'll be cut down eventually too, and maybe it will regrow, because they will regrow multiple trunks. Behind that is another chestnut that's got larger, nicer nuts. This is another chinkapin, good heavy set on that this year. Little seedling chestnut here. There's a few other seedlings, I think, in the mix. There's one right back there. This taller thing there is a pecan. I've got several pecans in this area. This is kind of the pecan part of the garden. There's a pecan there, there's a pecan there, there's a pecan here, and a few others. That's a persimmon. This big grass is big blue stem. I'm gonna walk and show you some pawpaws over here. Found some Kingstropharia mushrooms over here the other day. Must be from the wood chip mulch that I put down in the springtime. But here's the remnants, kind of deflated remnants of one of those. And that was growing next to this little pawpaw here. So this pawpaw is kind of small, but I've got some better looking ones. There's one there. I've got one here. I've got a couple over here. There's one. And there's one over there. And there's more big blue stem, and you can see this is flowering right now. And they call this turkey foot, and you can sort of see why from the seed heads. Gives it that nickname. These black locusts I planted from seed. Those, eventually may get cut down also. They're just kind of here to help build up the site and improve the fertility of these spider webs. This is a cherry tree that my friend Rosa gave me, but unfortunately it died. This is probably just the rootstock. That's been the story with every single cherry tree that I've ever planted, unfortunately. More big blue stem there with its characteristic seed heads. My grafts are looking okay. That's an apple graft. I think that's red Geneva or something. This one is that Ayer's pear that we did, and I took some of the wrapping off of that graft, and it's still got the parafilm on there, but I may remove that soon, but I didn't want to expose it too much. But yeah, that's probably got 3 feet of growth on it too. The deer have not discovered that one yet, thankfully. We've got some more autumn olives coloring up here. Maybe they're coloring up prematurely because it's so dry. Refocus. Chestnut that's died many times. Tulip poplar and catalpa in the background. 9-bark here. Catalpa. Bunch of chestnuts that have not been given any real love or attention in a few years. Still clinging to life, barely. Another wild serviceberry with tons of cedar apple rust. Or this kind of wild goldenrod. There used to be a hell of a patch of blackberries here, but that's gone now. Other side of these trees, there's still some in the neighbor's property, but it was a nice patch at one time. This is another rosin weed. I did plant a whole flat of these, like 40 of them or something one time around the property, so you'll see those here and there. I was impressed with how well they grew the first year. While Plum Thicket, these evergreens that I planted, the Plum Thicket has expanded out over time and enveloped them somewhat. That little one there is kind of hidden in the thicket, but I'm excited to maybe see a few of these American plums this year from that thicket, since my pollinators seem to have caught it for the first time. And here's the more open, arid, less protected oak savanna area. And this is, well, I'll show you in a minute what the rest of the garden looked like when I got it. But if you can picture what this, without any of the trees in it, that's kind of what the property looked like when I got it. It was just an old field with almost no trees in it. So these are low acorn oaks from Oikos. Here's one. It's growing pretty nicely. I've got several more, probably half a dozen or a dozen in total. This is wild asparagus, if you don't know what that looks like. It has usually multiple stems and this big kind of bush of fronds. There's one there, you can sort of see it in the dew. Another neat plant here to point out, these distinctive seed pods. Maybe this is not moth mullein, or maybe it is. I think this is moth mullein. There was another plant that had sort of a similar look to this that was called figwort, lanceleaf figwort or something. It was a new plant that I didn't know, but this might be moth mullein. Anyway, they both have seed pods that look kind of like that. I'll show you this American plum here that I transplanted, and the fruits on it are small. They're not like a store-bought plum. They probably won't get that much bigger than this, but these are not coloring up yet, so they're not nearly ripe. There's a hazelnut that came along for the ride, and then I don't know if I should even bother walking over to this, but I haven't flagged where I saw the fruit. But there were some fruit. Yeah, oh yeah, here's one. And of course, it's got bug problems, but there are the odd fruits in this thicket. There's one there. So I really want to try these. And actually, I might try taking cuttings of this thicket and grafting it onto some branches of American plum that I have up front, which are sprouts from this tree when it got moved. These trees have a real suckering habit, as you can see from that thicket. So, but you need pollinators for it. It doesn't pollinate itself. So this wasteland here, there's some low-tannin oaks, and then beyond that is all persimmons, basically. That bush there is a false indigo nitrogen fixer. That bush there is another one of those alders like we saw earlier. There's an oak. Here's a serviceberry with something else came along with that, or is that just serviceberry? Oh, some sunchokes. And maybe a red osier dogwood. That's a ponderosa pine that I planted, never grown very well. Planted some more hazelnuts over here. It's kind of funny to see how these wounds heal up when you take a limb off. So this is the wound closing up on this cherry tree, wild black cherry. Not much fruit on the wild black cherries this year. I didn't really notice any around the ones on my garden anyway. This is a nice Bramble oak. I've got to move this catalpa out of here and cut it down. So this kind of unused space back here, I'm going to plant 20 more chestnut trees. I was going to do that this last fall and they didn't get to me in time. So it's going to be this fall instead, hopefully, if they come. So there'll be about at 20-foot spacings. These will all be seedlings of superior cultivars. So that's exciting to have more chestnuts. I was going to originally have a bunch of evergreens back here, but my plans have changed over the years. This is the least visited part of the garden. I can't get back here to water very much, and I can just go enjoy evergreens somewhere else. So there are a few evergreens that I planted that have survived, and I'll leave those for a while. There's a white pine back there that's grown pretty well. This one is okay. I planted 7 red Oziah Dogwoods. This was part of an aesthetic scheme. I was going to have evergreens in the background and then some white birch, and there's only one of those still left, although there were 10 along the fence. And then these red Oziah Dogwoods kind of in a pattern in front of them. Interesting thing about these is they flower at weird times. They seem to flower all summer in some cases. Like this one's already finished flowering. It's got fruit, these whitish fruits. Birds love these. They're not edible but to us, but birds love them. So it's an interesting plant that has a long, strange flowering habit. So end of my property is kind of at that pile of rubble there next to the power pole. This is the hedgerow I replanted 2 years ago, and not too much to see here. It's just chugging along. Some of it looks stressed because of the drought. But oh, this is what my garden looked like. So this expanse of grass with no trees is kind of how my garden looked when I got it. It was just an unmown field for many years. After they tried to do agriculture on it and played it out, what little fertility the soil might have had to begin with. So this hazelnut may not have gotten completely demolished during the construction. It's got a nice fruit set on it. Some nice big clusters. They're kind of ornamental, and they have a nice fall color too. Hazelnuts, American hazelnuts, are a nice looking crop. I'll show you some persimmons here real quick. This area is all pretty much persimmons and nitrogen fixers for the persimmons. And a couple of these flowered this year, but no fruit yet, unfortunately. Maybe in a year or two. That wild black cherry is one that I didn't plant. And then there used to be a whole cluster of pines around here that all got removed. My outhouse used to be sitting next to where this pole is, and all that stuff got cut down for the expansion of the power lines. So this used to be kind of a little grove of evergreens here. It's looks pretty empty now, but that's coppice regrowth of 1 or 2 years on the false indigo. There's an oak that I think I cut down this spring again. Just keeps regrowing. Hazelnuts have some Japanese beetle damage. But yeah, I probably should cut this video off here before I walk all the way back to the front because it's gone pretty long. Sorry for rambling as usual. To the 3 people who watch these videos, thank you for your support and encouragement. Yeah, I'm just trying to do them every couple of weeks or so as the garden changes, because there's always different stuff to show. It's always evolving. Here's another riverbank grape to show the size of those. This is rambling over a Nanking cherry. And then I'll show you one last thing. This is a Downy Sunflower. So here's a cluster of Downy Sunflowers just about to open. And this isn't maybe not the prettiest one I've ever seen, but they're really nice. They have a great honey scented flower. And at one time I planted dozens, probably got a what do they call it, a case or a flat of 40 or so plants, and planted them kind of, I think, from the road all the way back to the back of the property. But most of them got destroyed during the power line thing, so there's only a few that remain. But you can see here, you know, I could split this patch into 40 to 40 new plants if I wanted to. So maybe someday we'll have the continual row of alternating Downy Sunflower and Sunchokes, like my original idea was. But the deer like to eat the Sunchokes a lot, so they probably won't let that happen with the Sunchoke part of it. But anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for your interest in my garden project. And I would encourage you to come visit if you're ever in the area. Just contact me and I could show you around. All right, thanks. Have a good day.